pokes through the ceiling and an old man falls out of it. He is the god of the poor who brings bad luck to people. Whoever is targeted by him, he'll make your family poorer and poorer. But today he'd picked the wrong person. Lisa's family was already in dire straits. There was no money for the poor god to do his work, but she had a good heart. She knew that the poor god would be driven away and starved wherever he went. Lisa was kind enough to take him in, and she prepared a table full of food for him. But as soon as he took a bite, he couldn't stop the tears from flowing down his face. The poor god said that in the 800 years he had been a god. It was the first time he had been treated so tenderly. The more Lisa listened, the more she felt sorry for the poor god. She immediately decided to let him stay here for the rest of his life. But her husband objected strongly to this, because if the poor god was left behind, they would only be poorer and poorer for the rest of their lives. But Lisa said, "As long as I'm with you, I don't care if I'm poor. It doesn't matter if I'm poor." Young and beautiful Lisa, just married to her husband, who was more than 10 years older. Although there is a big age gap, but they had always had a good relationship. Roy is a mystery novelist, looking for inspiration to write, so he took Lisa back to his hometown, because it's so remote and sparsely populated, so there were many spooky incidents. At first Lisa didn't care what Roy said, until one day, the two of them had just walked out of their house. They saw a river boy passing by. Lisa thought she must have been mistaken, but Roy looked like he was not surprised. Her husband explained that, due to its remote location, the countryside has been filled with demonic spirits since thousands of years ago. Over time, it has become a common habitat for both humans and demons, so it was nothing new to see a river boy here. Lisa was terrified. From that day on, she took Roy with her wherever she went, but as time went on, she grew accustomed to life here. In Lisa's eyes, where Roy was, she was happy. This evening, a temple fair was held in her hometown. Curious Lisa said she had to go and see it. The place was indeed full of demons. There were pig demons selling pork, and octopi selling seafood, and the food here, cheaper than in the human world. Lisa is a man who knows how to make a living. When she saw the special on pine mushrooms, and rushed to buy some despite Roy's resistance, only the seller for some reason showed a wry smile. On the way back, they were suddenly stopped by an old woman. She was Roy's old neighbor. She had grown up watching Roy. After greeting her, she left the place without a word. Roy told Lisa, in fact, the granny had passed away last year. What she saw just now was actually the spirit of the other woman. Roy said that in his hometown, no matter ghosts or demons, they all lived like ordinary people. Granny explained to Lisa that she didn't have to be afraid of herself. She was no different from a human being now, because her partner was paralyzed and bedridden and needed care. So when she died, she was very worried. So she submitted a request to the Grim Reaper for a ghost, so that she could wait until her partner's life expired, so that they could go to heaven together and not be lonely. Lisa admired her mother-in-law's bravery. When she got home, she told Roy, if she died first when she became old, she would be like her mother-in-law, to be with Roy as a ghost. But Roy said he was older. He might be one step ahead of her. This made Lisa suddenly feel a little sad. The next day, Lisa used the pine mushrooms she had bought last night, and made a delicious miso soup. But as soon as Roy took a big sip, he lost consciousness instantly. Lisa was terrified and tried to save him. But to her surprise, Roy's spirit was pressed out. She was in a state of confusion, and that's when Roy's childhood housekeeper suddenly arrived and slapped the ghost on the back with a broom. This was just in time to bring him back. The old butler explained that these mushrooms are from the demon world. If humans eat it, their souls will come out of their bodies. Lisa was so frightened that she covered her mouth. She had taken a sip of it while she was cooking. Strange thing after another in the house. An iron pot suddenly catches fire while cooking. Coffee soaks the manuscript he's been working on. Roy gets a call out of the blue. His serialized novel has been suspended by his publisher. This means the only income the two of them had ever had was gone. This series of unlucky events, the housekeeper suddenly realized they were probably being haunted by the gods of poverty. Roy tried to poke through the ceiling, and sure enough, they found the god of poverty. Roy ordered him to leave, but the poor god said he was already miserable, although he was an immortal. But since there was no shrine for him to worship, so it had been a long time since he had eaten a full meal. Lisa was a soft-hearted person. After thinking about it, she kept him. Lisa treated the poor god very well. Not only did she find him an attic to live in, she also prepared a lot of delicious meals for him. The poor god was very touched by this. He was in tears, but Roy was disgusted by Lisa's behavior. So while the poor god was resting, he persuaded Lisa to let the poor god go, for he had known a saying since he was a child. A poor couple will be miserable for a long time. Even the best of relationships can be separated. His parents were like that. Lisa wanted her husband to talk about what was going on between her father-in-law and mother-in-law, but to her surprise Roy was suddenly angry. It was the first time Lisa had been scolded by her husband. She felt somehow aggrieved. Roy also felt he had gone too far. He wanted to explain, but didn't know how to say it. The couple began to have a cold war, but Lisa still had no intention of driving the god away. She always felt that he was an old man, so he needed to be treated well. The poor god was very moved, so he took out all his belongings, and asked Lisa to choose a piece for her as a thank you gift, because he was a poor god, so he didn't have anything of value. When she found out that the poor god only had this broken bowl, Lisa thought about it, so she took a new bowl from home as a gift gift in return. She was worried that if the poor god didn't have a bowl, he wouldn't have anything to eat. With that in mind, the poor god then crossed out the name of the family. This meant that the poor god had completed his task. He was not going to let Lisa's family have any more bad luck. The poor god left. Lisa hugged the broken bowl. She was inexplicably touched. She understood that this was the best gift the poor god had ever given to her. Roy meets the neighbor's mother-in-law again in the street. It turns out that her partner has reached the end of his life. The two were going to heaven together. Seeing them together for life, Roy thought of his own parents again, so he called Lisa over that night. He wanted to see his neighbor's mother-in-law off together. An ancient trolley came along. Through a time portal, the two old men passed away together. Roy told Lisa he envied such loyalty and love. It was something he had never experienced before, because his parents had both died when he was very young. Roy went on to say his father was a professor of engineering. In those days, there was no money to be made. He traveled a lot because of his work, but every time his father left, his mother would put on her makeup. A box of food was carefully prepared to a famous writer. As for myself, he had been interested in literature since he was a child, so he suspected from an early age that he was not born to his father. This led to his mistrust of the couple's relationship. That's why he felt that poor couples are miserable. However, today, his neighbor's mother-in-law gave him the opposite answer. Even if they were poor, love can be as beautiful as they are. And so it was. The barriers between them were gone. They are as in love as ever again. Since the god of poverty left, their luck had finally returned. That night, Roy was out drinking with his friends. Lisa suddenly received a call from her publisher. They were planning to continue publishing her husband's novel again. Lisa rushes out of the room to tell Roy the good news, but suddenly she tripped over a hand. She was in a hurry and didn't think much of it. She found her husband first. Roy was overjoyed when he found out. He rushed home to prepare the manuscript and left Lisa alone. But then she suddenly felt something was wrong. Her hands and feet were cold. She couldn't feel any heartbeat either. It was only then that Lisa realized she must have fallen and lost her soul. So she rushed back up the steps to look for her body. But after searching for an hour, she couldn't find it. Unbeknownst to her, every move she made, the demon who had sold her the matsutake mushrooms that day had seen her clearly. We got home. Lisa wanted to tell Roy about it, but when she saw her husband working hard on a draft, Lisa couldn't bear to disturb him. In the end, she chose to keep quiet. After a few days of hard work, Roy finally finished his novel. He went to the pub with his friends to celebrate, but the owner's wife said he had a black forehead. He must be haunted by a ghost. She gave him an exorcism charm. If he put this on his door, no spirits could enter. Roy thought to himself that there was no harm in keeping it. When he got back, he stuck the charm to the door, but to his surprise, when Lisa got home, she couldn't open the door. Lisa was about to enter the house, but a force bounced off the door instantly. She tried again, but there seemed to be an invisible wall in front of her. She couldn't get through it. Roy saw this and tore off the light. When she saw that she couldn't hide it any longer, Lisa had to tell her husband all about the strange hand she had tripped over. She told her husband everything. She thought maybe it was a prank by the monster. Maybe it wouldn't be long before she could return to her physical body. But to her surprise, she was still a ghost. And that's when the Grim Reaper had suddenly arrived. He had come to take Lisa to heaven. Roy, of course, refused. He explained to the Grim Reaper that his wife's body had only been stolen, that she was not really dead. And with that he took Lisa and went to look for her. But suddenly he coughed violently and fell to the ground. After settling her husband down, Lisa rushed to her knees in front of Death. She made a request, wishing to be like the neighboring grandmother, to be physically present at Roy's side. But Death suddenly had a problem. He explained that because too many ghosts had made such requests, the Death Bureau was running low on life energy. So if Lisa wanted to remain here, then the cost would be the drain on her husband's lifespan. Lisa staying with Roy as a ghost would only make his health deteriorate until he died. Lisa thought long and hard about it. Looking at her sick husband like this, she couldn't stop the tears from flowing, but she made her own choice. Roy woke up. Lisa had disappeared, leaving only a farewell letter. In the letter she said she was lucky to be in love with Roy, that she was lucky to be married to Roy. She could not let her husband's life be shortened through her fault, so all she could do was to go to heaven alone. Roy was frantic to catch up. The past came flooding back to him. If his wife was gone, what was the point of living alone? He blamed himself and regretted it. Why hadn't he noticed something unusual about his wife earlier? Why did he do nothing but work and drink? Why did he learn to cherish only after he had lost her? Finally, he caught up with Lisa. The two of them hugged each other tightly. But rules are rules. Death finally took Lisa, leaving Roy standing alone in the dark, pounding his chest incessantly, crying like a baby. Roy wasn't about to give up. Every day he kept going to find Lisa's body. Finally, with the help of a few demons, he did find her. It turned out that this woman was also a miserable woman. She had died suddenly in a car accident. She just wanted to find a body to see her child again. That night a demon told her there was an uncooled body near the park. She didn't think twice and attached herself to it. The woman finally agreed to return the body, and Lisa began a plan to save his wife. He had to go to heaven to bring Lisa's spirit back, since humans can't ride the ghost's tram. So he drank the magic pine mushroom, and so he set off on his journey to heaven, through the gates of time and space. It was beautiful. It was like a picture of a dream. After asking around, Roy first found his mother. who had passed away. But to his surprise, she was living with the same writer as him. He turned his head to leave, but the writer put on his hat and glasses in a hurry. Then Roy realized that it was his father. And then, he learns that his mother had never betrayed his family. It was his grandfather who forced his father to become a professor. But he only wanted to be a writer. He had no choice but to go out every day in disguise. Then he changed his identity to write. I never imagined that it would be a misunderstanding for so long. Time to catch up. Roy told his parents the purpose of his visit. His father replied, "The truth is that the kingdom of heaven is different for everyone. What you imagine it to be is what it is. A bad man sees hell. Good people see it as beautiful as it is in front of them." So Roy's imagination could be materialized here. He could have used that power to save his wife. After leaving his parents, Roy found the Grim Reaper again. He found out that Lisa had been captured by the Skyhead monster. It turns out that the monster had loved Lisa for hundreds of years. But in every life, Lisa had married Roy. So in this life, he bribed the reincarnation officials. Lisa was born more than 10 years late. But to his surprise, they ended up getting married. This made the Sky-headed monster very upset. That's why he ordered the goblins to sell the magic pine mushrooms, so that Lisa could get to heaven first, so that he could marry her here. And that's when Roy arrived just in time. He grabbed Lisa and escaped. He used his imagination. He made a wooden bridge out of thin air. Then he rushed to the earthly station. The Sky-headed monster was enraged. He was in hot pursuit. But no sooner had he stepped onto the tram, the Sky-headed monster caught up with him. It corrupted the train with black worms. The two of them were pushed to the edge of the cliff. Roy unleashed his powers again, but in the face of absolute power. As a human, he was no match for it. To protect her lover, Lisa had no choice but to marry the Skyhead. But Roy said, "I've decided never to let go of Lisa's hand again." The skeezers were enraged. He held Roy in a firm grip. He threatened Lisa to swear to marry him now, or he would crush Roy to death. Lisa did as she was told. One by one, she read the vows after the monster. She was about to sign her name, but to her surprise, the Sky-headed monster was suddenly struck by a powerful blow, and the thing that knocked him back was a broken bowl. That's right, it was the same broken bowl that the poor god gave to Lisa on his way out. The poor god may have lived a humble life, but he was a god after all. The broken bowl turned into a flying machine. The two of them flew away from here quickly, but when they returned to Earth, the broken bowl was already in two halves. Lisa regained her body, and their lives were restored to peace. After this incident, the bond between them grew even stronger.